With the Chicago Bears making a few trades over the last week, we're going to take a look at where the Chicago Bears trade assets currently sit heading into the 2025 draft. We're also going to talk about why the cornerback position is probably one of the more interesting camp battles to see how it shakes out in that final 53-man roster. We're going to look at all that plus more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Terry Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. So just want to start it off. So we know that the Chicago Bears over the weekend made two trades. They sent out a 2025 sixth-round picks to the Seattle Seahawks for Darrell Taylor, and then they also sent out another sixth-round pick for Chris Williams, but they got a seventh-round pick back for that as well. And so the Bears go out, they solidify their defensive line, adding two quality depth pieces. More on Darrell Taylor later, as Matt Eberflus has talked about why he was kind of interested in bringing him in here. But where do the Bears now sit heading into the 2025 draft? We know that this past draft, the Bears didn't have typically the amount of draft assets that we have come to expect under Ryan Poles. And so right now, the Chicago Bears have seven draft picks heading into the 2025 draft, and that's still a solid amount of draft picks when you look at it. The Chicago Bears have one first-round pick that is their own. We also have a second-round pick that is coming from the Carolina Panthers. We also have a third-round pick. We have actually two second-round picks. We have our own second-round pick and one from the Carolina Panthers, which is the last kind of piece left from that trade that we sent the number one overall pick to the Carolina Panthers. This really, when you look at what has come from that trade, Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, and Tory Taylor so far, with another second-round pick coming in that selection as well. Hey, we really did completely fleece the Carolina Panthers in that deal. But outside of that, that's a story for another day. We have one third-round pick, one fifth-round, and one sixth-round pick, and a seventh-round pick as well. The sixth-round pick is the pick that we got, that we still have left. That's the pick that we got in the trade for Justin Fields. That could become a fourth-round pick if Justin Fields plays 51% of the snaps. So look at that case for Justin Fields there. But overall, the Bears still have a nice amount of draft capital, during the season. Now, we know that it may not stay that way. The Bears could very well look to make some moves during the season, especially if kind of the edge position doesn't necessarily work out the way, or the Bears feel like they need more help on that offensive line. That's one thing that, Ryan Poles has done every season. He's gone out and added guys. Now, like I said, we got two guys in Chris Williams and Darrell Taylor already in here. So, we'll see what the Bears do. Anything else, if they really kind of address any other positions between now and the end of the season. Always look out for the Bears to kind of be active at the trade deadline. But the Bears have a lot of tools at their disposal in next year, considering that we have most of our positions have been locked in for starters. Yeah, we're going to, Keenan Allen's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. We got some extension decisions to make, but for the most part, the Bears are probably shaped up to return most of their starters, even going into this year, next season, if they decide to do so. So, the Bears have an opportunity between their draft capital and their free agent spending cap, is that they can really, bring in players that need it. I think it's going to be a very trenches heavy and maybe a safety heavy, offseason for the Chicago Bears. But, we'll see. We're way ahead. We'll get to that when we get to that. We haven't even made it to the start of the 2025 season. And that's what brings me to one of the things that I want to talk about. We know that cut date is tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Central time. That goes down tomorrow. We'll have all our roster cuts by then. We may even get a couple of roster cuts to happen between now and then, and that's perfectly fine as well. But one of the positions I think could be the most interesting is the cornerback position. But the reason I feel that the cornerback position is shaping up to be one of the more important kind of battles in camp, so to say, like when it comes down to the final 53-man rosters, like, let's just talk about it. You got Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, Tyreek Stevenson, Terrell Smith. Those four are going nowhere. You can even talk about Josh Blackwell, Jalen Jones. You then get into Greg Stroman, Reddy Stewart. Like, you have a lot of guys here potentially that could all made their case for making your final 53-man roster. Reddy Stewart is an absolute ball hawk, right? He has the potential to be this turnover machine, and the Bears may want to keep that around, right? But then you have Greg Stroman Jr., who had to step up at times last year, even into a starting role for the Chicago Bears and played adamantly well at that point. And then Jalen Jones, Josh Blackwell have all shown things as well in that case also. Like the Bears cornerback position right now may be one of the hardest positions to make on the field in the game of football right now, outside of just on Chicago. When you look at it, like it's difficult to get on the field being a cornerback for the Chicago Bears. Now, I do look at a player like Reddy Stewart, in my personal opinion, as I think he's somebody that also has maybe some ability to maybe play a little bit of the safety role, especially when you look at the way that that he's able to go after and get the ball, things like that. So maybe that's a case for it. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think I'm a little bit off on that? That's one of the position groups that while me, Bobby, Steve-O, and C-Dub have all kind of talked about, we don't see necessarily too big of shocks when it comes down to who makes the final 53-man roster any further. That does not mean any won't come. But when you just look at this overall, like there's a lot of talent here at this position for the Chicago Bears, and that can make it extremely difficult. Now, Reddy Stewart being 5'11", probably not going to be a safety when it comes down to it, but maybe you can line him up as safety in some scenarios. He's played in the slot, things like that. Like it's just a really interesting scenario to think about who is going to make this roster for the Chicago Bears. And even me saying him at 5'11", Kevin Byard's 5'11", so he very well could still play free safety for the Chicago Bears. It's a lot there. And I think this is one of the deepest talent positions. And I honestly would not be surprised if whoever the Bears do cut at that cornerback position to make it to the final 53-man roster, any team that's needing help in their secondary are going to be waiting and licking their chops to try to get whoever the cornerback is cut from the Chicago Bears team, because they still have maybe even some starter level upside from some of these guys. It's just the way that you have to look at it. But as always, you guys can let me know what you guys think down below. Am I off my rocker there? Am I being too much of a homer to think that some of these guys could go to NFL teams and compete for starting spots right away? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. One of the pieces that we just traded for was Darrell Taylor from the Seahawks. And this is a guy who's coming in over the course. He's 27 years old. He's had 21 and a half sacks, 90 pressures, 34 QB hits, 5 forced fumbles in 49 games. And when you look at it, 5.5 sacks just last year in 2023. This is a guy who was a second-round pick, still young enough to kind of pseudo-fit that timeline where you're waiting on a player like Austin Booker, who we'll talk about next in a second. But then you look at the season, his career best season in 2022, 9.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. Matt Eberflus is excited about this guy saying this. It's exciting for us to get him. He's got sack production, a really good pass rusher. He fits our schemes in terms of his effort, his style, his disposition. Those are things that you really look at well. And we know that Ryan Poles, he almost tried to make a trade for Matthew Judon. It did not happen. It didn't work out. You go out and get this guy. This is a guy who has tremendous upside, but doesn't necessarily get in the way of a Daniel Hardy or Austin Booker. If any of those guys, if they are ready to kind of step up into a starting role, he's already shown his ability to be a depth piece. Now, I've seen some Seahawk fans say, hey, watch this guy in the run game. He's not necessarily that good. But okay, even if that's the case, let's say at worst, he's a budget version of Yannick Ngakoue, who doesn't necessarily have the health concerns. He's considerably younger, and he's productive in being a depth piece, while Yannick Ngakoue is going to be, has been a starter for the most part of his NFL career, right? So you're getting a guy at 27 years old who the least amount of sacks he's had in his career is 5.5, and all those coming as not being a starter. He hasn't been a starter. He's played 41% of the little over 41% of the snaps over the course of his NFL career. That's, again, extreme great production. This is a really underrated pickup by the Chicago Bears, and I think it's easy to kind of make it go over undervalued, right? Is that it's just when it comes down to it, you got this guy with this type of sack production, which is exactly what you want for a 6th-round pick, while you still have young guys in the wing developing at that position that are probably going to be your long-term starters. And you did so for a contract that's $3 million. He's a free agent at the end of the year, so you're not tied to long-term money. If your young guys do show that they're ready this season, you can go out and get another depth piece. This is an extremely good signing, and to hear Matt Eberflus, who is a defensive-minded head coach, to be this excited about this guy, it's not surprising. It shouldn't be shocking, in my opinion, for Bears fans. Darrell Taylor is going to have an opportunity here, especially being under an Eric Washington coordinated defense. That the way that Eric Washington likes to rotate everything in and out, he's going to get tons of opportunity. He very well could play a higher percentage of the snaps here than what he's had in almost any other snaps, just by any other stops, by the nature of how Eric Washington likes rotating that defensive line in and out. And if you go and watch this guy's tape, you see motor, you see drive, and you see that he, quite simply, no matter what you say about him in the run game, I even think he can be a little bit better in the run game. But regardless of all of that, the simple fact of the matter is this guy gets pressure on the backfield. That's what you need from a defensive end, and you add that depth piece. Now, that has raised the question of what then happens with the rest of the Chicago Bears edge depth, considering, you got guys that were already trying to make this roster. You look at it. Montez Sweat, DeMarcus Walker, Austin Booker. These guys are confirmed going to be playing snaps at the edge, right? Now got Darrell Taylor, who's going to be in there as well. So it comes down to, like, what happens with Dominique Robinson? Does Dominique Robinson end up making that roster, right? There have been some things that Matt Eberflus said that have made people think that Dominique Robinson is still going to be here. But again, that was before, the amount of moves that we made on that defensive line. And we'll see what comes down to it. Daniel Hardy, right? That's what it's really coming down to, is Daniel Hardy, Dominique Robinson. To me, I'm going Daniel Hardy all day long. That's just my personal opinion. But again, as I like to always say with these type of things, I'm not in practice. I'm not in training camp day in and day out. There could be things that the coaches see that I just don't see, but we'll end up seeing what happens with that one. I hope that Daniel Hardy makes this roster. I think Dominique Robinson is one of those players that have had enough time to show what he can bring. Hasn't really shown a whole hell of a lot, but maybe the coaching staff feels a little bit different. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. With that, one of the things that have definitely stood out, one of the players that have definitely stood out for the Chicago Bears is Austin Booker. When you look at it, coming into the draft, 15 different teams met with Austin Booker. And there was a common consensus that he had talent around a third-round talent. But considering how raw he was, that a lot of teams did think that they can get him later in there. It eventually is that Ryan Poles saw his value. He moves back into the draft. He gets his guy. That's perfectly fine, right, when it comes down to it. But when you look at it, Austin Booker had 33 tackles, 7 sacks, and 8 tackles for a loss in 2021 with Iowa, right? This is a guy who has shown that he has the propensity to really grow, right? And people have compared him to Lucas Van Ness. Again, a guy that I'm not necessarily going to, it is what it is when it comes down to that. But Austin Booker offers the chance right now, and I actually gave the numbers for Lucas Van Ness, not Austin Booker. When you look at Austin Booker, 56 tackles, 8 sacks, 12 tackles for a loss. That's what he did there in Minnesota, not Iowa. My bad on that one. But you look at that, the only thing that stopped Austin Booker from really becoming or going higher in the draft was the doubt around him and his size. That's it. That's what it came to him, is how raw he was in the size. But when you look at it now, Austin Booker, the way that he attacks the game, the motor, that is something that you cannot deny when you watch Austin Booker play football, is the motor that he goes out there with, and the fact that he's rounding out the skill part of it, right? The finesse part of the defensive end position is the thing that he can grow in, and you expect to happen over years, is to learn some of those finer moves and details. But even then, he's come in and shown a nice ability to use those moves now. Austin Booker, when it's all said and done, while we're talking about Darrell Taylor and Dominique Robinson in the edge position and Montez Sweat, especially having a vet like Montez Sweat to mentor him, Austin Booker has the chance to be the biggest steal, maybe under Ryan Poles' tenure here. When you look at the talent that he has, the upside that he has, where you got him at, what you had to give up to get back into that draft, Austin Booker has tremendous upside here. And we're going to see if he's able to bring it. Now, one of the questions that are left hanging is, who's going to be that starting defensive end? Do the Bears feel comfortable starting Austin Booker? Has Austin Booker shown enough via through training camp, practice, and throughout the preseason to earn that starting role? Do you go with the vet and DeMarcus Walker to at least start? Maybe Austin Booker, if he continues to show growth, whatever that is. I feel like when you look at what the Bears have done in trading for a player like Darrell Taylor, is that they got somebody who can be productive being a depth piece, meaning that it gives them flexibility on, hey, maybe Darrell Taylor does end up starting some games. Maybe it's Austin Booker. Maybe it's DeMarcus Walker. But I think that the Bears are creating an environment to where it's basically Austin Booker's for the taking once he shows that you're able to perform consistently enough at the level that we need you to be able to dominate. And so let's see what the case is for Austin Booker. Austin Booker has just as much potential as any other rookie with the Chicago Bears. Of course, not albeit Caleb Williams' ceiling is or potential is a lot higher, right? But like he has tremendous potential at that edge position, and he's coming into a position group that has veterans, a nice mix of veterans and young pieces. Javon Dexter, if he's made the leap that and step that a lot of people have thought that he's made in training camp, it's going to be a big one for this. And I think that the Bears defensive line overall is in a much better position than what some Bears fans realize, and that they're going to be an extremely productive defensive line. You look at how we were in the latter half of last season, especially after getting Montez Sweat. We are a more talented defensive line than even that was. And so that's why you see the expectations around this defensive line coming into the season to be able to start off where that defense ended, right? And this overall defense, all three phases of that defense, all three levels of the defense, I should say, all have their plus sides and all have reasons to believe that this is going to be a really dominant defense. And Austin Booker has that chance. And throughout the Rome Odunzes, the Tory Taylors, the Caleb Williams, let's not lose like the Karen Amagaje, who's also like this draft, when you look at it, Ryan Poles did such a potentially great draft, especially if Karen Amagaje and Austin Booker end up turning into starters. We already know Rome and Caleb are starters. Tory Taylor is going to come in. He's automatically aiming to be one of the best punters in the game of football. If you get value out of those two guys and they ascend to the level of being quality starters for you as well, this could be one of the best drafts that we've seen, even with the limited amount of picks that we've had for the Bears in the last 10 years. And so let's see how that's going to develop for this Bears team. Austin Booker is the player to watch out for this season, and watch his growth and development and to see what he can turn into and lay the foundation for this rookie year. But then it's not done. He's still going to have off seasons where he's going to add to his game. He's still going to get bigger. He's going to get stronger. He's going to adapt to the NFL game. Austin Booker is one of the guys to look out for, and as somebody who loves defense, and especially like I've always said, when the Bears are great, the defense is great. Hey, watch out for Austin Booker. Now, for one thing being great on that offense, on the defensive line, let's get to one of the concerns. The offensive line has been a concern for a lot of Bears fans. I would say that they've produced better than expected for me in the preseason with when you factor in all the injuries and things like that. And there have been some thought and process between some Bears fans to say that Ryan Poles is not really invested in the offensive line. I got to say that that's incorrect. He went out and signed Nate Davis as a free agent to give him guaranteed money to make sure he came in here. Now, Nate Davis hasn't necessarily worked out the way that we had hoped he would have in his first full season for the Bears, yet he still has time to turn that around. He drafted Darnell Wright 10th overall, right? You got rid of Cody Whitehair, Lucas Patrick, Sam Mustipher over the last few years to bring in Coleman Shelton and Ryan Bates. He's invested in the offensive line, but there's still a big question mark. And two of the biggest question marks on that offensive line for the Chicago Bears come down to Nate Davis and Tevin Jenkins. And these are two players over the course of this NFL season to watch out how it shakes out for. Tevin Jenkins, we all know. He came in hurt during his rookie year, but we know what he can be. The thing that makes it so disappointing of how Tevin Jenkins' career has gone so far is that when he's on the field, he's everything you want him to be. He manhandles defensive linemen with ease when he's in the game and fully healthy. There's no question about that. The question is how healthy can Tevin Jenkins stay? And that's why we sit in a place where this could very well be Tevin Jenkins last season in a Chicago Bears uniform, not because he doesn't produce when he's on the field, but because you can't invest heavy money into somebody that you can't bet is going to be on the field for you. And that's what it comes down to. So heading into this regular season, 2 weeks away from the regular season and us playing real meaningful football, yet again, it comes down to, can Tevin Jenkins stay healthy enough for us to get out of him what we know he's capable of consistently enough to where Ryan Poles feels comfortable giving him a deal? That is one of the biggest question marks for the Chicago Bears heading into the season. We've already heard they won't even entertain contract extension talks with him until after the bye week. That's almost halfway through the season. The Bears want to make sure that Tevin is going to stay healthy. Like I said, the production on the field isn't the question. Can he stay healthy? And if he can, that's where things start changing. And then you get into Nate Davis, the guy we gave a 3-year guaranteed contract for of upwards of $10 million. That he brings his own set of questions, not because if just injury, that's a part of it, but because of his mental. Somebody who hasn't really practiced. Yeah, he finished the last 2 weeks of practicing every single day for the most part. Great for that. But on top of that, even when he did get in the game last year, it hasn't necessarily been the production that we thought we were going to get out of Nate Davis. Nate Davis also has a really big question mark around him. And these are two of the people on that offensive line that are hugely important to the development of Caleb Williams and the overall success. I've said it multiple times. I do not want to have a season where we have all this talent all around on the offensive side of the ball, and it's the line that holds us back. And that's the thing that you have to ask yourself for. Now, Nate Davis through the preseason has looked rusty as well. Like there's no sugarcoating around that. He has looked like a player that you can tell has missed as many practices as what Nate Davis has missed. That is why practicing is important. How you prepare for the game is as important if you're available during the game. And Nate Davis has very much failed at that last part of it. And so we have concerns. The left guard, right guard, whatever it ends up being for Nate Davis, and Tevin Jenkins. And so having these questions around these guys aren't where we want to be right now. And we'll see what comes about it. Like, I hope that both these guys are able to answer the questions around them to where it's not a question anymore. And if we can eliminate those question marks, if Nate Davis and Tevin Jenkins can stay healthy and productive on the field, then that just helps the Chicago Bears focus assets in other places, right? But if they're not, if we have to replace Tevin Jenkins this year, it's probably going to have to take us using our first or second round pick on an offensive lineman to get a guy in here to be able to replace him, because that is how good Tevin Jenkins is when he's on the football field. And we'll see. We'll see. Let me know what you guys think on everything down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at Chi Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. Oh, wait, that's the wrong channel. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. It's been a long Monday. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.